Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation to bring you a prelude to destruction, as the title says. And the most important question to answer is, yes, my real name is David. I go by DJ, but unfortunately, every time I register for a tournament, you got to pay with a card, so it comes up with David. So I put David DJ in the title line of this one as kind of a hello to a lot of the people I play tournaments with who may not recognize who's this DJ guy. I know someone with a similar last name, but his name is David. So guess what? Same guy. But that's not what we're here to talk about today, really. We're here to talk about the Prelude of Destruction, the next Necron list that I will be bringing. And I am posting this video early than normal because of a couple reasons. One, I want to hear some responses and some comments and talk about this stuff and talk about it entirely. Two, I want to go a little more in depth with some of the stratagems and why I picked the units with this army and have that time. And three, this is a list that I may be taking to a tournament this next weekend. Now, those who don't know me and those who have kind of noticed on the channel, I don't like playing meta builds. I will play meta builds if the units in that meta build are models or units that I specifically really like. Thus, me running the Canoptic Court, as well as some of my recent experience with Dread Knights and Grey Knights. Grey Knights have always been just a special place in my heart, and it's hard not to go into, oh look, oops, all Dread Knights, especially when the army doesn't have the depth of data sheets. Necrons is a different story. Right now, meta Necrons is mostly Hypercrypt with the splash of Canoptic Court still there. Both of those are very strong detachments. I've run the Obeisance Phalanx, got it right that time, and I thought it was really good. And that one is actually one that's been on my radar to bring back again or even play in the tournament. But I've been very impressed with Xeris and Immortals. And with that, I am going to be running the Awkened Dynasty at first this Monday. And if this pushes through, this may be the list that I will be taking to the tournament on March 23rd. So, with that being said, let's first start off with a big question of why Awkened Dynasty now? Why Immortals now and not at the earlier parts of the edition? And the answer I have for that is a 100%, I really don't know. The only speculation I can give you, and it's all speculation, is I feel like as this game has evolved, we have a deeper understanding of what it takes to win and play competitive 40K, which has changed some of the values of units that we may not have looked at before. On top of that, we have other units that have diminished in value. Lichguard, for example. Now, it's difficult to complain about this because in one hand, as Lane always bugs me with it, Necrons are one of the top, the meta top choices right now, the highest win rate. But the highest win rate is going into things like Hypercrypt. I feel like that is about to shift here very soon. A lot of players are now starting to plan for up-down lists and things like that. So we're going to start seeing some more units come in that can slow down or stop things like Hypercrypt. Canoptic Court is a little bit slower, but still plays a very strong objective game, which is going to be something we're going to be talking about a lot in this video with the objective game. And Canoptic was actually one of the, as I played last week, options with this build. The big thing about this build is I want to run it around Xeris because I feel like Xeris is a super powerful, just almost Primarch levels of durable with Necrons in general, and even more so out of Awkened Dynasty. And as I looked through stuff, and it started with the Obeisance Phalanx, and I looked at these Immortals like, man, this is really good. This worked out kind of cool. And then I brought in Canoptic Court because of the full rerolls for Cryptech units. So I was like, okay, that's really cool to be able to fish for lethal or sustained hits. Then I started to look at Awkened Dynasty, and my mind just blew. Like, I couldn't believe on how much stuff I was going to be able to do and function out of this list. So I started to theory craft with it, and then I asked myself the same question. I'm like, okay, this all looks good, but why didn't this happen before? Not a lot of the points have changed. I went back and I looked at the research. Xeris dropped significantly. But I have to say, I think the biggest takeaway is two things. Again, one, the understanding of 40K. I think that early on in the edition, it was much easier to play off of powerful data sheets and let powerful data sheets carry an army to victory over tabletop tactics. Now we are looking deeper at these things because we've been able to play these units and go, okay, how can I win? Well, how can I score more points? And I think that side of the game is starting to curve. The hill is starting to come for that with all these codex releases. And I think that's one of the things that makes this, my eyes look at this dynasty, this detachment differently than it would have at the beginning of the game edition. With that being said, at the beginning of the edition, we were also blinded by things such as indestructible bricks of Lichguard, reanimating Necron warriors that could just pop back to full size like nothing, and things like that that were probably a little bit too much. And at the same time, too, we weren't getting as much damage output, but there was still so much resilience that you just weren't killing the army. You know, your opponent would win a game, but how much damage they would do, or just having Lichguard that just wouldn't die, it became rough. I think that some of the reasons that Necrons didn't have as high of a win rate might have been lack of speed at the time, as well as the fact of just a lower damage output. You know, Lichguard are great in combat, no guns. And then as well, the understanding of how 40K is played, playing off objectives, secondaries, and how stuff has just evolved where we've had more time with these units. So now we're able to start theory crafting into weirder things. Now, as I said, I don't particularly like to play the meta. I like to bring something that is of my own creation, because anytime I win a GT with my own creation, it feels so much better. It feels like I've presented a piece of artwork. I've created this. And if this wins, you can't say, oh, well, of course, it's X, Y, or Z. It's like, that's a weird list. I mean, there's a couple of Goonhammer articles that I've had about lists that I've brought, and I've always loved hearing the creativity behind the list or the comments behind. That's what I yearn for. And even if some of them were third place finishes or second place finishes, I didn't even win the event, but it still brought notoriety of here is this very, very unique build. Even to my AdMech, the reason I have so many Castellan robots is because I was running them when they weren't even that good. So now we get back over into Necrons and the Awkened Dynasty and what I've been looking at for this, because it started with the Obeisance, then it went to Canoptic Court, and then in Canoptic Court, I liked a lot of the things in there, but then I started to say, well, but I'm not getting as much use out of what Canoptic Court does because I'm not running as many Canoptic units. So I started to look back at Obeisance, and I'm still thinking about it as well. But before I commit to that, I have to try the Awkened Dynasty, especially because now looking at how some of this stuff interacts with each other, it's really surprising that not more people have run onto this as well. Now, I do run a little bit of a risk defensively, and I have put some buffs in there for it. So I got my codex here so we can talk about all these abilities. I'm going to throw this out there, throw up some pictures of the army and what I'm looking at, because I have it all out there. We're going to talk about this and see what we can come up with. Guys, please comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, turn on the bell for notifications, and let's talk Necrons. All right, Awkened Dynasty. So now the Awkened Dynasty, we're not going to talk about the old Awkened Dynasty and what it used to do. We're just going to talk about Awkened Dynasty as of what it is right now. So Awkened Dynasty, any unit that is led by a Necron character gets +1 to hit, okay? So this army, let's flash a picture up here right now of what we got here, so we're going to talk about it real quick. We do have 30 Immortals. 20 of them were with Tesla, 10 with the Gauss Blaster. All 3 Immortal squads are going to have 2 Crypt Thralls. The Gauss Blasters will have a Plasmancer. The 2 with Tesla will have a Chronomancer. We have an Overlord on foot with the Gauss Blasters. And remember how I said there was two big things that changed for Awakened Dynasty? Here is the other one that really I think is what gets Immortals on the map. The Translocation Overlord. Auto-advancing 6 inches makes these Immortals super, super fast. Combined with the Chronomancer, we've seen this with Warp Spiders. Being able to shoot and then move allows these guys to bounce around a lot. Not to mention Xeris being able to give these guys +1 AP, as well as giving them Armor of Contempt, the AP reduction. You know, you got to get that buff to grow. But Xeris giving that buff to these guys is huge. Now, we also have 10 Lich Guard, led by an Overlord, and 5 Flayed Ones, because they can infiltrate with stealth, and 2 3-man squads of Gauze Destructor Locust Heavy Destroyers. There's a Convergence of Dominion that's not just there to be pretty, as well as a Canoptic Reanimator, because I want to make sure that we have the maximum amount of reanimation we possibly can have from a defensive realm, which we'll talk about soon. Now, the picture up here is missing one thing, because right now I am working on him and I have him in wet paint because I'm trying to get him cleaned up and ready and get a little more work done on him, and that's Illuminator Xeris. He's getting painted right now, so I didn't have him for this picture. We'll put a picture up there for you there. There's Illuminator Xeris. There's old Illuminator Xeris. I'm still working on him. But that's the list. Now, why this list? What does this give me? Okay, so let's start with that. So first of all, one of the enhancements I'll be taking is Veil of Darkness, which is going to go on the Plasmancer, who is with the Gauze Blaster Immortals. This means that I can pick them up at the end of any turn and bring them back down. They can come down near Xeris. They can come down near the enemy. One of the huge advantages to Immortals is that they have the inherent ability to re-roll all failed wounds against units that are on objective markers, which means we are playing 40k, objective markers. If you're not on it, and I'm not on it, you don't control it, neither do I, but you don't either. Tesla, with the Chronomancer, I can shoot and then scoot up and take that objective marker. So all-encompassing, this army is focusing on objective markers, not to mention the fact that we'll be playing fixed secondaries with storm hostile objectives. So I'm playing 40k, and I'm being rewarded with secondary points as well as the primary points for just playing Warhammer, just trying to take objectives, having a center focus around just the objective markers. Now, the Flayed Ones, we'll mention them real quick. My second secondary for fixed is Cleanse. 2 points for 1 objective, 4 points for 2 objectives. I have many ways to get that second point, but the Flayed Ones are in a position to be able to infiltrate with stealth, move to an objective, and just cleanse it all game long. That's a big part of this list. Now, again, we're not finalized with it. We could tweak some stuff here, but this is where we're at. So, on top of the Plasmancer, who has the Veil, we also will be taking the Fazil Subjugator Aura. So this has changed, and what it does now is any unit that's within 6 inches gets +1 to hit. So the count as character kind of thing, but they just get +1 to hit. This is primarily for my Locust Destroyers. Now, I could take a Locust Lord, but I don't have the points really to spend into it. On top of the fact, hitting on 3s isn't that bad. And I believe these guys are heavy too, so I could sit still and get +1 hit off that. But the point is that if I need to have that heavy early hit, I will have the Subjugator on the Overlord with the Gauze Blaster. It won't matter for most anything else, but it will help for the Locust Heavies in the early stance. In the early stance of the game, if I need to hit a big vehicle and hit it hard. Because any 6s to hit will be lethal, but just hitting it on 2s and it's a vehicle or monster, I re-roll 1s, it's a lot of chances to do damage. Add AP4 and flat 6 damage. These guys hit so hard. And if they don't kill, I have Gauze and Tesla for days to bring in there and try and finish off that target. Recently, the lethal hits were able to hammer onto a Hecaton really good. Now, One of the things out of the Canoptic Court was the full rerolls to hit, which I could fish with on the Immortal squads. And that's where a lot of this comes into and what we're going to look at here. So now let's look at these secondaries, the stratagems real quick. And this is where I was kind of like starting to break in my mind on how this stuff could work. So let's talk about the ones that are not battle tactics first, because that's important. So we have the Protocol Eternal Revenant, 1 command point. You can target a character that has just fallen, stands back up at the end of the phase, not immediately. So you're not getting shot at after getting shot at. The end of the phase, and it comes back up with half its wounds remaining. Now the caveat here is this is an infantry character. Well, let's see. I got 4 overlords. Those are infantry characters. 3 cryptechs, 2 chronos and a plasmancer, and a Illuminator Xeris. He's infantry, and he's a character. And it is so obnoxious when a 9 wound, toughness 8, 2 up, 4 up, invuln, with a 4 up feel no pain, that's been blown up because of battle line, just falls, and you go, I spend a command point, he stands up with half wounds, and then if your opponent cannot answer him in combat, or if he was dropped in combat, then you're going to reanimate for D3. Brutal. Brutal. Moving down, then we have Undying Legion. Undying Legion is amazing. And it's part of the reason why we have a Canoptic Reanimator here, as well as the Convergence. So the Convergence gives an aura for Feel No Pain. Cool. Being able to, the way I look at it, if I stop 4 Immortals that live, or, save Lich-Guard's life a couple times, at least like 4, then the Convergence bought itself. So we're looking at the fact that if I need to successfully really make 4 Feel No Pains over the course of the game that actually affect a model staying alive, 4 Feel No Pains that keep a model alive, Convergence buys its points. Okay, not so bad there, because it's pretty cheap. And then the Reanimator. The Reanimator can be one of 2 things. It can either be just kind of like oogie boogie scary, look, ooh, I can reanimate a bunch of stuff, ha ha ha, you have to take me out. But it also has a 4 up Feel No Pain. And I can hide it behind obscuring terrain if my opponent cannot get to it. If my opponent does, they might burn a lot more shooting into that thing than they want to. On top of having to expose things that they may not want to, that my Locust Heavy Destroyers can then hit and sit. Now, with this stratagem, I get D3 plus 1 because I'll have characters with a unit. Reanimators nearby, we get another D3. And then at the end of the phase, if you still hit me that hard, but the unit's still alive, I can pop a Resurrection Orb for D6, and then D3 more off the Reanimator. This is huge to be able to bring these Immortal squads back up that have Armor of Contempt and a Feel No Pain. Good stuff there, especially in the early get-goings of the game. If I go second, it's going to be a lot harder to get that Reanimator. Also, the Reanimator later into the game can be a unit to cleanse objective markers. Again, with the Tesla Immortals, they have assault weapons, so they could advance and cleanse objective markers. And another good one is the Lich Guard. The Lich Guard are kind of in there to be a defensive wall against combat units and slow stuff down. That's a unit that can also kind of take some of that impact. And at the same time, if doing nothing else, cleanse an objective. That's one of the big reasons I like Cleanse, is that it has a lot of different options based on the flow of the game. If my opponent pushes onto objectives and is trying to take objectives from me, then every time I flip them and take them back, I'm scoring 4 points for storm hostile objectives. And then if my opponent isn't really pushing at me and trying to stay off those and not give me storm points, then I can just cleanse and score 4 on cleanse. So I can keep the score moving either way. It's going to lead to probably lower scoring games unless I can really push my opponent back. But these are 2 secondaries that are very easy to do, where other things that pop up, like behind enemy lines or engage on all fronts, would be really, really tough for this force to do. Moving down to the next one, Protocol of the Hungry Void is a battle tactic. We'll come back to that. Protocol of the Sudden Storm. 1 command point, all ranged weapons have assault. Now, at this time, I haven't done it yet, but I have considered giving my Lich Guard the Overlord with that squad, since I don't have reroll failed wounds because he's not with the Immortals, which again, that's also a big buff that my Overlords get. The squad gives reroll failed wounds. So in combat, I'm looking at reroll failed wounds on those Overlords and their scythes and Overlord's blades. The one with the Lich Guard, I considered giving a Staff of Light to. And that may be a final place where I go. And the reason being is the Staff of Light, if I spend a command point, I would then have be giving ranged weapons equipped by models in that unit, the Assault ability. Since I have that one Assault weapon, now that unit is eligible to shoot because of it. Therefore, I can advance and, magic word, cleanse for 1 command point. Not a battle tactic, but as you can see, like some of my other stuff, I have 1 command point defensive strats. Save it for Protocol Eternal Revenant to be able to res the character. Sudden Storm is kind of something I probably just use early turn game, early like turn 1 if I go first. Kind of a good one to have for the command point, but later in the game, not really as important. Late into the game, when some of my units get destroyed, those characters can then go branch off and cleanse by themselves, which is a nice place to be at. It's like, okay, I lost the Immortals, I have a Chrono, I have this, I just need to cleanse. Protocol of Conquering Tyrant is battle tactic, so we're going to come back to that. Protocol of the Vengeful Stars. 2 command points. When you destroy a Necron unit within 6 inches of another Necron unit, and specifically a character unit, so a character would have to be killed, which I got a bunch of those. Then, for 2 command points, the unit that's still alive can shoot at the unit that eliminated the character unit. Yes, so it is a triangle of sorts. 2 command points I'll probably never have to spend. But now let's go back over to the 2 battle tactic strats, because these are very critical in where I'm looking at. So first of all, Protocol of the Sudden Storm. So first of all, you need to be within half range. Okay, so Tesla, very easy for me to get within half range because I'm auto-advancing 6 inches. Cool, get within half range, get within 12 inches of a target. So for 1 command point, because I'm led by a character, full rerolls to hit. Cool. Wait, that's a battle tactic. So now my second squad of Tesla Immortals, they're moved into range. Let's do it for 0 CP because of the Overlord zeroing out that battle tactic. Cool. So now both my squads of Tesla now have full rerolls. Well, they're already hitting on 2s. So why is that a big deal? Because we can fish for 6s for double sustained. That's a big boost. Now, in Canoptic Court, I wouldn't need that at all. I would just have full rerolls to hit as long as I controlled half the objective markers. But what if I don't? And what if I'm trying to push and trying to get aggressive, especially because of the second strat that I want to talk about? So having that means that I can do that and do it for free. Also, our Veiling Immortals with the Gauze Blasters. They have lethal 5-ups. Once again, the Canoptic Court gave me full rerolls. The only way I could get full rerolls to hit out of the Obeisance Phalanx was with an enhancement, and the unit had to be on an objective marker. Well, if someone's hip to it and doesn't want to get an objective marker to avoid my reroll wounds, and I need that target gone, like Primarchs or Demon Primarchs, for example, how do we get around it? That's why I was looking at this strat. Because I can still do it on the Tesla and then do it for free on the other squad. So 2 squads that, as long as they're within half range, and because of the Veil, I can get those Gauze Blaster Immortals within half range, land them within 9. But then that means they could get charged and they could end up in combat. And I say, come get some. Because let's look at that real quick. Let's talk about Immortals in close combat. So Immortals are strength 4, 2 attacks, AP 0, 1 damage. but they're led by a character. So they're +1 to hit. So now they're hitting on 2s. There are 2 attacks. And then Xeris is nearby. So now we got +1 AP. So we're 2 attacks, AP 1, Strength 4, 1 damage. But wait, you're on an objective marker that we're hitting a unit on an objective marker because we're trying to take that objective marker and flip it for storm hostile objectives. And once again, 40k is being played. You score objective markers, you hold them, you win. So now we have full rerolls to wound. So now we're at 2s to hit, Strength 4, full rerolls to wound, AP 1, 1 damage. And then the coup de grace. Protocol of the Sun and Storms. For 1 command point. I'm sorry, Protocol of the Hungry Void. For 1 command point. And because we're led by a character, we get +1 strength and +1 AP. So now, in finale, we have 2s to hit, Strength 5, AP 2, full rerolls to wound. And if we're not on an objective marker, we're rerolling 1s to wound. Okay. But full rerolls on the objective marker. AP 2, 1 damage, 2 attacks apiece. 10 immortals, that's 20 attacks. And then we still got the Thralls, and we still have the Overlord, who can full reroll with dev wounds. And the Overlords on foot, I'm giving them 3 damage. They're coming in, they're going to hit for 3 damage for their devastating wounds. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work we're going to be putting on them. So that is what I've been looking at, having those stratagems. Now, what this is going up against as far as detachment-wise, Obeisance gives me precision on the Lich Guard. I would run the Triarch Stalkers over the Locust Heavies. So I'd have units that would be pushing onto objective markers that could pop to OC7 on the objective markers if need be. Still cleanse. We'd get +1 to wound on a target that we'd pick at the beginning of our command phase, which was effective. I will say that was very effective. I did like that. We would also have the ability, we have a battle tactic strat out of that detachment that gives 1 unit 5-up crits, and then we can give another unit 5-up. So we're looking at our Immortals with Tesla having 5-up crits, as well as our lethal Gauze Blaster ones. Having the precision to fight on death on the Lich Guard is cool. Having the full reroll to hit on units on detachment is pretty cool. Ignoring cover, pretty cool. But might be, I feel like kind of not as strong in the sense of where I'm able to, while it's not like, okay, I can't give everything a 5 to crit. Everything can't have a reroll, even though, Obeisance, I'm not getting everything a reroll. 1 squad, and that'd be the lethal hit squad, is getting the full rerolls. The other ones are getting 5-up crits. So I feel like because I'm able to pick 2 units really with the Overlord abilities and 1 CP, that means I can focus which units need to have the full rerolls. And while one of them only has 6s to crit, full rerolls I can still fish. And 2s to hit, I don't feel as bad picking up everything, rolling everything, again, that isn't a 6. And then looking over into Canoptic Court. Now, Canoptic Court, I just have the rerolls. No questions there. As long as I control at least half the objectives at the beginning of the phase, I have full rerolls for all Cryptek units, i.e. Immortals. But late into the game, if I don't control those, and I'm having difficulty getting that second half because of the tight game, that was one thing I noticed against Lane, now I'm losing that full rerolls. So, and I need those. I might need those to really prop off. And where I just have to, again, spend a CP or zero it out. At that same time, I don't even have to spend the command point on it. If that's the case, if it's 1 unit, I can just go, here, it's free. Now, once again, back over into some of the enhancements, we do have the Subjugator. Is that what it is? Yeah, the Subjugator on the Overlord for the lethal hitting Gauze Blasters. And that's for just early game. I had the points. I was able to put it into there. So that gives me the ability to go twos to hit with the Locust Heavy Destroyers. So if there is a big target, I have those guys to be able to just go hit, kill. What I'm losing in this that I like out of Canoptic Court, and it's really a hard bargain, is the Canoptic Doomstalker. I love it. Its Overwatch is great, but I need 2 shots to hit and wound to equal the damage that 1 Locust Heavy can do. And 4s to hit, re-rolling everything, really nice. 2s to hit, I mean, I'm not missing that frequently then. So it's tough. It's tough to say which one. But I do feel like, the Locust Heavies are really strong. And then as the game goes on, there is other targets that it's like, okay, I don't need to hit this as hard. I don't need to be as reliable. Some transports and stuff like that. Where, okay, even if I just hit it twice and wound it one gets through and I do flat 6 damage, that's a good start for my lethal hits to be able to go through, or Lich Guard to charge, or as we're talking, Immortals with Strength 5 charging in and punching the side of a Rhino. Not punching a Land Raider. We're going to shoot that with our lethal ones there. But it puts us in a position where now we have 3 options into the bigger stuff. We have 2 squads of Locust Heavies. We have teleporting Immortals. Xeris can go running up there to make sure they have that additional AP. So there's a lot of good options. Again, being able to teleport them, I can probably get them in a position where they ignore cover. So that is the concept of the list. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Still got room to talk about this and room to decide. I think I basically covered everything in there. If I didn't, please ask in the comments section. Sorry, throat's getting a little dry in there. Hopefully I was able to edit the sound on that and get that out of there so I didn't break anyone's eardrums all of a sudden. But that's what I got for right now. Look forward to reading the comments. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.